Okay. Good morning and welcome to the Woodward Fire Press Briefing. Today is the last day of August, Monday, August 31st. My name is Mary Rasmussen and I'm the Information Officer for Northern Rockies Team 2. For speakers today, we have Brandon Chakowski, who will talk about the operations on the line. We also have Cedar Drake, who is a resource advisor, and he will talk about the natural and cultural resources on the line and how resource advisors work to protect that. We also have Sergeant Brenton Schneider with us and Fire Chief Jason Weber. So I'll turn it over to Brandon.
Once again, good morning, everybody. I'm going to start out just giving a little description of kind of where the fire sits in relation to some communities and some roads. So obviously, as we start down over here, basically at the bottom of the fire is fairly close to Coast Camp Creek, which Coast Camp comes out there to the Pacific. We move back, another good point of reference is Point Reyes Station. Up on top, the park headquarters, the Bear Valley Visitor Center, which everybody knows about as well. We have the communities here in Fox, Silver Hills, Drake Summit, Inverness Park, and then for a little bit further up, or just off the map, is Inverness proper. As far as some of the road systems that we also have, we reference a lot, is the Limitour Road, which is kind of right now at the top of your map, and it kind of circles and obviously heads basically back out to sea there, and down over on this side here, right at the fire's edge, is the Bear Valley Trail. So just kind of a little quick update of where we're at, and of course Highway 1 runs along here and ends up going down to Bolinas as well. So as far as an update on the fire, things actually are going very well for us. We've got a lot of folks out there doing some good work. Combination, we're doing some active on the fire. We're mopping up, we're patrolling, and we're burning out all at once in different areas of the fire. So I'm going to start back over here, what we call our Division Zulu, right off the coast here near Coast Camp Creek, working up. And this piece down here is actually looking really good. We plan on tonight being able to have some more containment in this area. On this, basically the west side of the fire, things are looking really good in that desert scrub. And as we move up into larger, more of that old growth timber component, the larger tree components, we move up into where Sky Ranch and Z Ranch trails come together. So overall looking very good. As we move around into the area of what we call Division Echo, the north side of the fire along Limitour Road, we did some good burning up here yesterday, about 1.6 miles yesterday along the road. Burning operations started about 1:30 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we got done with that about 1800, a short window due to the relative humidities and how well fuels would be able to burn, and that was heavily affected by the density of the marine layer and how well it eroded. So short window, we got quite a bit done. We right now along Limitour Road and this dozer trail that comes back up the horse trail and back into Sky Trail, we have 1.4 miles of burning left to do on there, and that was used a combination yesterday of some hand lighting by 20-person crews, as well as an unmanned drone, and our operator was able to use the drone and get it further up the hill, doing some lighting with little plastic spears there on the hillside. So very good operation yesterday, and that's what we continue to look at today. And if the weather it cooperates with us, with the forecast is better today and tomorrow for a decreased marine layer, we should be able to accomplish that very well. But as we come down back here behind the visitor center area along that dozer line, things are looking really good in there. We have some engines and crews patrolling and mopping that up. The entire road coming down Bear Valley Trail is also looking good at this time. We have a lot of engines moving back and forth, patrolling that, making sure we don't have any spots, and doing some mop-up operations. And we also have some faller modules here Faller module is 2 fallers that are very experienced folks to start dealing with basically hazard trees that we need to take down and mitigate that hazard so it doesn't come across the road or injure a firefighter during our operation. So they're scattered around the fire, performing hazard tree mitigations for safety. The other piece down here around Baldy Trail, as it comes back down to the other side here, basically the southern side where it meets back up with the ocean. Things are going really well down there. We got one piece of hand line that we're still working on burning off, and we believe that'll probably happen today. They're getting that piece on Baldy Trail done. It's a pretty wet area down in there that we're trying to finish up, but we want to get some good black in there so we have some very good security on that. We also look at today and tomorrow, depending on weather, working one of the helicopters with the same dispenser, similar dispenser machine that the drone is using, but it will allow us to get in a little bit further in some of the areas, basically just west of Bear Valley Trail and areas south of Limitor to make sure if we have any green pockets or islands that we can get a little bit more fire underneath there below the canopy to reduce the ladder fuels so we can't get fire up into the canopy. Overall, it'll make it a much more secure fire perimeter if we're able to take out some green pockets that are in there, especially with the wind changes that are coming up. Last couple of days, just due to a lot of marine layer, we haven't been able to fly aircraft very much. We had a little window yesterday, but not a lot. And a lot of the operations right now is we're trying to burn out off of the road is one of the reasons, we're not running a lot of our scoopers right now because we haven't had any control problem. And we're currently doing any pre-treating with retardant. The classic red retardant basically that gets put onto fuels. It's a little bit of a salt fertilizer-based product that basically coats a fuel and takes away the properties of that to be able to burn. That's kind of how some part of that works. It has a longevity of too, depending on the environment. Sounds like tomorrow you might hear more about retardant from some of our air ops folks in that aerial operation. So we still do have folks out in our structure group making sure that as we continue the burn right now in communities, the close communities of Fox and Silver Hills, we have folks in and out of there to make sure that we're watching where the smoke goes and any ash and ember so we can make sure things are good. And we also always are in contact with Marin County Fire and their resources. If we need extra resources on a quick basis, we talk every morning and know how many engines in the local area and other resources that we can mobilize quickly to help us manage anything out here in this area for sure, close to the community. So overall, we're expecting a good day today and tomorrow to be able to finish up burning around the fire and really kind of solidify our control lines and the overall fire perimeter. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Cedar Drake, and I'm serving as the lead resource advisor here on the Woodward Fire. I supervise a small team of fire line resource advisors and fire line archaeologists, and our job is to work very closely with the firefighters and with the incident management teams to provide recommendations as to how we can minimize negative effects to both cultural and natural resources of the fire. So the process for us is typically when we first arrive to the incident, we will be interfacing with the resource specialists at the park. So that could be archaeologists, botanists, wildlife biologists, aquatic ecologists, and we will find out where these sensitive resources are located in and around the fire. And then we will, from these specialists, draw recommendations as to how we could avoid or minimize impact to these sensitive resources. We then work very closely with the fire operations group in order to recommend potential alternatives to line placement. We're working with air operations to minimize the possibility of retardant being dropped in sensitive areas, which is oftentimes freshwater ponds, freshwater creeks, things like that. So then the resource advisors are essentially working out in the line. They're interfacing with the firefighters at a very localized level and working very closely as operations proceed. The second phase of resource advising has to do with what we call suppression repair. So this would be the restoration phase of the impacts associated with firefighting. So you can think of things like hand lines, dozer lines, perhaps potential impacts to water quality, things like that. So the resource advisors will then work throughout the fire area to identify what type of impacts have been created, and then work with the operational staff in terms of minimizing potential for erosion and things like that. Many of you have been asking what some of the sensitive cultural natural resources are with this fire. We've had a lot of concerns with wildlife. So the fire area there are spotted owls present in the area. It's actually some of the best habitat for spotted owls in Marin County. And so we've been working very closely with operations staff to avoid areas where there are known nest sites, as well as working closely with operations in terms of the burnout operations that have been occurring. So favorable for the spotted owls would be a low-level ground-based fire, cleaning out the understory, but not necessarily burning out the overstory, the canopy of the forest, as well as protecting particularly large trees and trees that have special sort of unique features, be it hollow cavities or different deformities of the tree that would make it advantageous for nesting. And so far, I'd say this fire has been very successful in all those regards. These burnout operations have been fantastic for the spotted owl habitat, and in some ways it may actually improve that habitat over time. Another concern has been the California red-legged frog, which is an endangered species that occurs in freshwater systems throughout the area. And for this species, our recommendation has been obviously the avoidance of retardant, making it into these freshwater locations. We've also minimized or actually we have completely avoided the need to pump any water out of these ponds or lakes in the area. So instead, all the water that's being used for fire suppression and for mop-up is actually coming out of a municipal water system. So that's been great. We've been working very closely with Air Ops to ensure that we're not getting retardant in exclusionary zones, which are typically some of the freshwater creeks that we have that are flowing into the Pacific Ocean. There's been another concern for the Townsend big-eared bat, which is also a threatened species. And interestingly enough, there are two historic structures in the vicinity of the fire, not actually in the fire perimeter, but these are the two largest breeding sites for this particular species of bat in California. So again, this is the type of information that we relay on to operations so that if the fire was to proceed in that area, we could emphasize the importance of trying to protect those structures. Likewise, we're also looking at the cultural landscape. We're looking at both historic and prehistoric cultural resources. A good example of that would be the Kuli Loklo Native American village. It is a restoration or a reconstruction of a village site in the vicinity of the Bear Valley Visitor Center. So we were able to work with operational staff on the ground during a burnout operation there to ensure that that temporary bark structures that have been built in that area, that fire did not actually impact those structures as well. And then we do have an archaeologist on staff who is now going around the fire and assessing known sites to determine what type of impact those areas may have suffered, so that we can then both document that and stabilize it to prevent any type of future impact as well. Now, of course, the entire fire is occurring within the Philip Burton Wilderness, so that adds another layer of complexity and resource sensitivity. So we've been working, again, very closely with fire operations staff to take all efforts to minimize our impacts in this area, and likewise, we'll continue to do so during the suppression repair efforts to return the wilderness back to as much as as much of an untrammeled state as possible. Thank you very much.
Morning, everyone. I'm Brendan Schneider from the Sheriff's Office. So again, to touch on the warnings and evacuation orders that we have in place, the communities of Sea Haven, Inverness Park, Drakes View are still under evacuation warnings. The only order currently in place is Silver Hills, Fox Drive, and Nornway still. And like Brandon was talking about, we're looking at once this firing operation is complete and we feel good about the line over here, we are having conversations about possibly repopulating the Silver Hills area and also lifting some warnings. But again, we won't do that until we feel confident that there's no more threat to any of those communities. The area from Lagunitas Creek south to Sir Francis Drake and Shoreline Highway, everything north of Sir Francis Drake and south of Lagunitas Creek is still under a warning, and everything down to Five Brooks and in between the Bolinas Ridge Fire Road and west is also under a warning at this time. I saw a question online about how close is the fire to Mill Valley, and I would say that it is probably 15-ish miles maybe as the crow flies, but it's nowhere close to Mill Valley. There was also a question that I saw online about if anything north, or by considering Point Reyes or areas north of that, would be placed under a warning or an order. And as of now, there's no plans to do that. But I do caution you that that could change if the fire behavior changes. But as of right now, there's been no conversations of that happening anytime soon. And then in addition, we saw a question about looting. We've had no issues of looting. Deputies, highway patrol officers, National Park Service, and California State Parks are all patrolling the areas that are both under warning and also that are under an order. So we continually drive up and down Silver Hills, Fox Drive, and Norn Way. In addition, the only road closure at this time is Bear Valley Road between Sir Francis Drake and Shoreline Highway. Other than that, that's all I have. Have a good day.
Morning, Jason Weber, Marin County Fire Chief. Again, thank you all for your patience. I want to thank the team for these briefings. You're getting the same briefings the firefighters are getting in the morning. It's one of the most transparent procedures I've seen used on fires. So kudos to everybody that's been involved in making this happen. We've had some questions about smoke. The smoke's going to be with us here for a while. This is in heavy timber, a lot of understory out there. It's a smoky fire because we do have that fog intermix, so it's not burning perfectly clear. That will be with us for some time. Are there better areas to go? It's dependent on the wind, the fog, the inversion layer, and you'll see that kind of change as the weather changes today and tomorrow as to what parts of the county are less impacted. But if you're out on the coast, the greater Lima Valley, Point Reyes, it's pretty nasty, and it's going to be that way for a little bit. My daily reminder about water conservation: please don't turn on sprinklers unnecessarily to water your house or your property. We need that water for firefighting, as was mentioned. So again, we appreciate that. Brendan talked a lot about the operational considerations. Yesterday was a big day. Today's another big day. These are important lines for us to get in and get secured so we feel comfortable moving forward for weeks to come, that if we have wind shifts or a wind event, that this will remain within its primary boundaries of the fire. So a lot of important and good work being done out there, and I want to thank everybody, and of course thank all of you for your patience. We understand this is challenging and trying for all of you, between the smoke and just the uneasiness of having a fire, many of you in your backyards. Thanks again.
Okay, just a few final thoughts. I wanted to point out that in addition to the audio Spanish translation, we are now having our daily update translated. That'll come out a little bit after we post our written daily update online. So the written Spanish translation of our daily update will be available daily. Just also wanted to point out that we've got a lot of good pictures and videos on InciWeb that you can so you can go see what's happening out on the fire line. And tomorrow we're going to have an air operations supervisor and specialist talk to you about how air operations work on a fire. And then finally, I just wanted to give you the fire statistics for the day. It's now at 3,269 acres, which is up about 200 acres from yesterday. It's 17% contained. That's 17%. We have about 585 personnel on the fire, and that includes people staffing. The staffing is with 14 fire crews, 37 engines, 5 helicopters, 4 airplanes, and 5 bulldozers and 2 masticators. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.